All right, guys, here is today's shave. Going to keep on going with the same soap, Smoking Bishop from Barrister and Mann, and it is in the Omnibus base. Going to use the same razor and blade, the Gillette Nacet, inside the timeless 68 gap open comb stainless steel razor. It's already in there. And yes, 535. Today's count will be 535 uses on the Nacet. Yesterday, we tried the Smoking Bishop with the big brush, the big Thader brush that I have, and it did all right in terms of the Slurry Lather method that I've been kind of crafting lately. Just kind of experimenting with different brush sizes, brush types, soap bases, because I want to see if it's a good method to recommend for about any situation, at least in terms of the different hardware pieces that you're going to use. And I haven't really found any soap base that it doesn't work with yet, but I'm all sciencey, so I like to try as many as I can anyway, at least the popular ones. And of course, Barrister and Mann is a really popular choice. I just found yesterday my Seaforth Black watch, which I have not yet tried the Seaforth base, the spearhead base that he has, the standard one, although it's one of my favorites, and so I'm confident it'll work just fine with the Slurry. This one is in the Highland base, so it's a little different. I'm glad now I at least get to try the Highland as well as the standard Seaforth base. This is a little no-name. All it says is made in Germany. It's heavily lacquered here in the handle. It's almost has a vintage look to it, like it's a bit old. And maybe it's not super old because after all, we still have some fibers here. It does not look to be a premium boar brush. If you look at the tips, they are not nearly, as I've mentioned in a couple days ago, they're not nearly as finely tipped. The narrowness and the fine nature of the tips is more premium here, like on this Zenith brush. And so this is probably not going to be as premium. However, these tips are splitting as well, and so they will get a nice small texture to them. And so it just adds to the echoes the fact that a boar brush that is even a not great quality one, if it can get to be split, then it can turn into a better brush because the tips will get more fine. All right. Get my face wet. And then let me show you the Nacet here that's already installed. Many shaves on this. I'm going to try to get it to 550 or some round number. I may go for 555, you know, because that sure is easier to type. And then I'm going to send it off and have it microscoped, have the edge looked at by a friend. That'll be neat. See if we can discover something. I have no idea. All right. Now with the Slurry Lather method, I expect it to go a little smoother with this small bore brush. And I told you we're going to kind of keep confirming that Barrister and Mann's base is good with the Slurry method. I've already done a couple of shaves with the Omnibus base in the form of War and in the form of this one yesterday. And so this is kind of confirmation for that. In both those other cases, I was using a large Badger brush. Is it around? Yeah, here we go. Very large Badger brush. To compare it with the brush we're using today. That's the difference, right? And so we this one, not as good with the Slurry Lather method because the Slurry Lather is kind of for speed. It's for you to have a nice super slick shave, 3 great passes, mainly focusing on slickness. And then you're done before you know it and you're out the door with carry on your business, your day's business. Now this guy takes a little bit longer to rinse, right? Because he's so big. So maybe that's kind of not conducive with a quick method. However, I had to try it anyway because I like using the brush. It just took a little bit extra water because this knot is just so dense and it doesn't hold as much water against a brush that's of similar size, just that's not packed so tightly because there's less space for the water, right? And so I did have to add some more water to the brush, and then it worked fine. It didn't excel. It didn't feel as good in the sense because it's a more rigid bristle. That also due to the density of the bristles, they're so tight together that they don't move as much. And so the boars do present a more comfortable feel because of their movement, right? They move around. The boar I showed you a minute ago, the Moor boar, this is the Zenith B35. It's kind of dense relative to other boar brushes, but it's not dense compared to that big badger I showed you. And it holds a ton of water. And so it's wonderful with the slurry lather method, because the point of the method is to start out with a bunch of water instead of starting out with a thick paste like some other face lathering methods. And there's nothing wrong with those if you like them. I encourage you to try them and just pick whatever you enjoy using. But this comes at it with a lot of water up front, and then the lather kind of comes together as the shave progresses, but all the while you're getting a really slick experience on your face because that is going to protect you. All right, so we're going to load with this tiny boar brush. Matter of fact, let me show you how tiny. See, because you can see how hollow it is in there, and I can squeeze down to just barely larger than a dime, 12 millimeters, something like that. He's been soaking for 10 or 15 minutes, so he's ready to go. And let's splash a little bit of water on my face one last time here. About a day's worth of growth, so that's pretty standard, and that's good for this old blade. So I used this yesterday, and let's do 30 swirls. I did 70 the other day, but that was with that big badger. Be interesting to see. Oh, let's do half, 35 swirls, and see how that compares to what I experienced. Okay, I'm letting kind of the water drip out. This is so kind of small, I'm not even going to do any shaking. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use it when it's even before it has stopped dripping here. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30, 35. And you see already we have generated this kind of little slurry around the sides. We can make use of that. I think part of the reason why the slurry lather works is because right now you just saw that brush and we put soap on the tips of it. Of course there was water there too, but soap is on the tips, and we're about to put that on my face, and then that tip soap is going to become skin soap, and it's going to lay down a little thin layer of soap on my skin surface. And I think that is why the secret that gives this method a, let's see, look, instantly, in just a couple of swirls, we have the slurry develop. That did not happen with the big badger. And that's just the nature of the brush. This has so much room for water. And then bam, I can actually stop right now and shave with this. You can feel it with your fingers if you want. Super, super slick. Because that soap is on your skin. And then on top of that soap, we've put a bunch of really wet, sudsy, watery stuff. And that's going to be a great combo for slickness. If you do it the other way around, where you put paste on your skin, soap concentrate, and then you're gradually adding the water, you kind of have to wait for that slickness until you can bring that water content up. Now we're starting with a lot of water content from the beginning. Oh yeah, I love the smell of this smoking bishop. It reminds you of food things because it is named after a holiday drink, I think from the UK. But it's not so gourmand that you think that's what it has to be, I think it's a good year-round scent, but yeah, during the hot summer months, it's not going to be as nice as maybe something else. And there we go, a little quick first pass. Now we grab our little brush here. I didn't even do a little water rinse, but that's all right. Just that is all we need. Now look, we don't have tons of lather here on that little brush. But that's okay. Let's just roll with it and kind of see what happens. With this blade, I'm often doing 5 passes to get a good shave, but as you saw, that first pass was pretty quick, and the rest of them will actually be even quicker. There we go. A little quick water. Nothing like a full rinse, but yeah, I can feel that slickness. So that's good. Let's see what the brush gives us now. Not very much. A couple of little swipes in the tub of soap give us a little bit more soap here, underscoring the point that we don't need a big old Santa Claus beard's worth of lather to get protection and effectiveness from your lather. See, because that's just crazy slick right there. Matter of fact, there are a bunch of guys out there, because I think an overly drying soap lather is kind of prevalent. A bunch of guys out there with lathers that may look a lot better but not perform as well as what I have on my face right now. Cross grain again. I don't know if I would be able to be taking this blade so far if I did against the grain passes. I might try that sometime with this blade. The guys who say that a blade gets dull at a certain point, you know, they may differ than me in that they do against the grain, and so they need that extra sharpness because of that kind of aggressive movement. The direction there, it's very important that your blade be sharp enough. Otherwise you can get irritation, pulling of hairs when you're going right against the grain of the beard growth. All right, very good there. A little quick water splash, and that's 3 passes, I think. So yeah, we don't have this, you know, this brush didn't really hold a whole lot of lather, but that's okay. With the slurry lather method, I can just kind of dip my brush in water, do that, and now I've kind of recreated the slurry on my brush. Again, I don't have to try to remake it into a big lather. So I did have to go back a little bit to the soap, you know, because I loaded for half as many swirls as the big Badger brush I was telling you. Almost as a comparison. Like, does this little brush need half as much? And, well, yeah, if I was only going to do 3 passes, it would have been fine. But I needed more. So I went back to the tub. And why is that? Is it because the other brush is so big? Yes and no. My opinion, this is just my educated guess, is not that it's because of the general rule, the kind of a rule that if you have a bigger brush, you have to load for longer because you need more soap for the size of the brush. See, I think that's a myth. I think that part is a myth. And that, look at that, quick pass, done, rinse. But the bigness of the brush, I think, prevented it from getting in the soap and pulling up as much soap out of the, from the tub into itself. And see, that is why I think the big brush needed a longer load, is because it doesn't pick up soap as fast as this little guy. He was able to get, he frothed up quicker, Exhibit A, he frothed up quicker, and because those bristles are really able to get in and get around because there's not that density to kind of get in your way and slow things down. And if you feel like you need a little bit more water, like right now, this is not a slurry, but that's okay. This is my 5th pass. I can just dip my brush. And now we're back to being super hydrated. I guess using the slurry lather for this marathon blade and then needing to do 5 uses is kind of goes against the whole slurry lather's meant for speed thing, right? But that's okay. Actually, it might be a good use case because if it gives me a fast shave doing 5 passes, then maybe that speaks extra highly of the method. Last week when I was not using this old blade, 3 passes were all I needed. You know what? Let's be crazy and do a little bit of, look at this. This is a wet lather. That's what happens. Let us try an against the grain stroke right here. Lay down a little bit of extra slickness right there. And let me pick the one that doesn't have the bent part of the blade. Okay, that's it right there. And try this. See if it can do against the grain. And this is my trouble spot right here. This is the worst. If I get irritation, it's right here. I'm being very careful. And it's not cutting effectively. However, it's not cutting totally. A fresher blade would just make that area baby butt smooth right there immediately. But at least I was able to do it without generating any irritation. All right, and it's really very smooth in general. It's very close. So I think that's a highly presentable shave. Nobody would definitely look at you if you were able to do that. So that speaks well, a little bit better to me about this, about my marathon blade here. The fact that I don't go against the grain. I could be going against the grain if I was so inclined, and I think the blade would still be going as long as it is a guess. All right, well, that's 5 passes. Pretty good result. Happy with that. I used Cade yesterday as my splash, as my aftershave product, and it was soupy. I think it's starting to degrade, and so I did not experience any funky smells of an out-of-date balm later on, that next hour or so. I think I was getting the legitimate Cade fragrance. Let's try it again just to see. All right. Gave my face a good rinse. Last time it kind of just poured out. I don't know if it's going to be more solid this time or not. Still a lot more loose than it used to be. I guess I don't need to be shy about using it up, right? The scent potency has reduced. I remember it being stronger when I was using it a few years ago. And it's reduced such that I wonder if it's the formulation's base smell, could be part of it. But seemed to work well. My face felt nourished yesterday, but maybe I do need to abandon this guy in favor of other ones that are a bit more lively right now, like some of my sterling balms, because they will go the same direction and break down over time. Unlike the splashes that we have, like History 101 from Summer Break, Clubman Brandy Spice. I like Whiskey Woods better in terms of the Clubman series, but Brandy Spice is pretty good. Oh yeah, and Brandy Spice, I know from experience, I've tried that with Smoking Bishop here, and it is a perfect match, not a match, a complement. It works very well. It's right in line with the Smoking Bishop. It's a great follow-up, and it's inexpensive. You know, you can get this at the beauty supply stores. The big ones will probably have it. Maybe be able to get it for you, even if they don't have it in stock, right? Surely they could order it for you. All right, well, there we go. That's use number 535 of the Nacet blade. All right, started back in 2018. Yes, 2018. So proof today that the Smoking Bishop, the Omnibus base from Barrister and Mann, works great with the Slurry Lather method. This brush is so small that, yeah, I did have to go back to the soap tub. And so 35 seconds was not long enough to give me all the soap I needed. So what I may do is keep using this brush with the next base that I try. And that might be the Black Watch, because I'm just looking at it right now and I may not be able to resist doing that. One nice thing about these tiny little boar brushes is they just don't take very long to rinse out. Very good. Gave this little guy a little bit of hairdryer treatment after giving him a good rinse, and maybe you can see some of the split ends, and you can see how non-dense this brush is. It's got a decent splay, but it does not have a lot of fibers, a lot of bristles in it. But it works well. It didn't feel sparse when I was working it on my face, and I think it would feel better if I wasn't using the Slurry Lather method, a method that brought the lather to maturity, because then throughout the shave, the nicer viscosity and light creaminess that would come with a good lather would make this feel just really nice. Better than today, but it does get the job done on a slurry, and most modern boars are even more have more bristles than this, and so I got a feeling they'd be just fine. So I may use it again. Maybe I might use it when I try Black Watch, but it'll be a neat little brush to watch work. I'm sure it just wasn't very expensive. It does have some little staining marks here by where the knot is, and so it looks like it was used some years ago when it was used, but not a lot of tips were split in this, and so maybe it wasn't used a lot. Maybe it was put away pretty quickly. Maybe even back then it was a brush that just wasn't all that expensive. Somebody bought it and then moved on to something else. Maybe. All right, well, there we go. The Cade, light fragrance still, but I think maybe it's time to, unless all of a sudden I start smelling it a little bit later on, I think it's time to retire this BaM and realize that I should have used it more years ago instead of waiting and rationing it out so much. Thanks so much for watching. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. All good shaves to you, and hopefully my stuff can help you out somehow in your shaving journey. Take care now. Good night.